Women's World is proudly brought to you by Telecom PNG. Telecom PNG, always there.
Hello, I am Miriam Rakanye and welcome to Women's World. This episode is a follow-up from last week's episode where we touched on domestic violence. However, on this episode, we will be sharing with you services that are offered by the Family Sexual Violence and Action Committee. The services they provide to victims of domestic violence in the form of counseling and also through their One Talk counseling helpline. Sexual violence occurs throughout the world, although in most countries there has been little research conducted on the problem. Available data suggests that in some countries, nearly 1 in 4 women may experience sexual violence by an intimate partner, and up to 1/3 of adolescent girls report the first sexual experience as being forced. Sexual violence has a profound impact on physical and mental health. As well as causing physical injury, it is associated with an increased risk of a range of sexual and reproductive health problems, with both immediate and long-term consequences. Its impact on mental health can be as serious as its physical impact and may be equally long-lasting. Deaths following sexual violence may be a result of suicide, HIV infection, or murder. Sexual violence is defined as any sexual act or attempt to obtain a sexual act, unwanted sexual comments or advances or acts to traffic, or otherwise directed against a person's sexuality using pressure by any person regardless of their relationship to the victim, in any setting, including but not limited to home and work.
We provide crisis counseling, risk assessment, psychosocial support, psychological aid, emotional support, and suicide intervention, and also providing information and referral pathway for survivors of gender-based violence. We receive a lot of calls. Calls are coming from different people talking about different issues. Most of the calls that the counselors receive are from socially related issues, family and sexual violence, child abuse, rape cases. Sometimes people talk about different issues at homes when they experience argument or intimate partner violence or other forms of violence that they experience, they call. So calls is broadly, I would say it's from all different forms of violence. Referrals, it depends on the survivor and the case that they present. After the assessment is done and the counseling is done, then the counselors seek their consent whether they will pursue the case to other services for legal advice or for safety purposes. If they want to go for safe houses, seek refuge, or they want to go to other service providers. After the intervention, after the counseling, they assess the risks that involved, and if they need further assistance, then the counselors do assist the survivors in terms of referral. They refer to many other services. The partners working with the hotline or the helpline, then they do referral. There are more than 350 service providers around the country where they link with the helpline. So when the survivors need help, the counselors do refer based on their consent. A counselor receives like 10 to 15 calls. That's for one counselor only. But the calls are more than like 1,000 calls are coming in. But because we have only few lines, the counselors only meant They have 9 phones that they can mend. So like more calls, but then they depends on the case that they present. If it is a lengthy case, then the counselors spend more time talking about issues, providing counseling. So it's like they take roughly about 30 to 40 or maybe an hour for counseling, and the rest of the calls died out, but then they call again, so they have to. So like more calls, like let's say about 20 calls is what expected from a counselor, so they receive more calls. The assumption would be wrong because according to the data, it shows that 50% of the calls are from men, 50% are women. So like it's equal number of people. Let's say both male and female are calling to this to access the service. Domestic violence happens in different homes based on different reasons. But most of the thing is because men, when they don't understand their partner, what they need and how to support it, it creates a lot of friction. It creates problems where men try to take over control of a woman, and that is where violence, sometimes arises. But otherwise, if men would understand their wives and provide support and what they need, and then I think they will have a peaceful home, and the whole family will enjoy it. We'll have a peaceful society in our country. Oh yes, I think this is very important. The service is provided, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So like we give equal opportunity to all the survivors around the country to call using the digital phones to call and access this service. The counselors are already behind the telephone from 7 o'clock a.m. and then finish at 7 p.m. So within that time, I think we have given them ample time to call and talk about the issues that they have, so they can talk and share with talk to the counselors, because it is confidential, and every detail that is presented will be kept confidential. No information will be disseminated from the counseling room, and it is confidential and give equal opportunity to all the survivors to talk about what they experience, and then the counselors are ready to provide counseling interventions and help them in the issues based on the type of issues that they present. Counseling can be done.
Okay. You are watching Women's World. Please stay with us as we have more when we return. Welcome back. One effective way in which victims of domestic violence may be able to deal with these issues of abuse is through counseling. However, the mentality that does underline this issue is that victims tend to or favor keeping these issues of abuse to themselves. However, it makes the issue worse than it seems.
How effective is counseling in dealing with abuse-related issues for victims? Anyone who has experienced abuse in whichever form will require emotional support of some kind, but everyone's needs will vary. You may have a support network you can lean on, but equally, you may not feel comfortable speaking to loved ones about what has happened. Or maybe you have, but they are unsure of how to help you further. Whatever the situation, it can be beneficial to seek help from a counselor in order for you to see a way out and escape from a cycle of powerlessness. You deserve to be listened to with respect and without being judged if you choose to talk about your experiences. Counseling offers you a safe place to talk without fear and without judgment. Your therapist can help listen to you, help you come to terms with what has happened, and understand your options for moving forward.
Hi viewers, my name is Susan Setai. I am the president of Papua New Guinea Counselors Association. Papua New Guinea Counselors Association is an organization established under Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee after our many advocacy program we conducted on gender-based violence. We saw that there was a need to assist the survivors who were coming out for psychosocial help. And so we saw that counseling was a need. Even though counseling was already happening with HIV/AIDS and Christian counseling in the churches and other form of counselings were happening, there were trainings given. PNG Counselors Association was established in 2009. Our aim was to provide quality training for counselors. And so the name is Counselors Association. And our focus is on the counselors, so they are properly trained certified, accredited, in order to provide professional counseling to our survivors, men, women, children, who come for help or for psychosocial help. It is a very effective way because there are a lot of people who are living with stress, so much stress on them. And there are a lot of people who are traumatized, and therefore they need to talk to someone who will help and guide them to find ways where they will manage their problems, manage the issues that's affecting them, in order that they will find peace in their own selves and to live a happy life. Yeah. Like what John was saying, we have interventions on planning, helping the survivors to plan what will happen after they complete the process of counseling with our counselor, and how will they deal with themselves after they leave the counseling services, so that they are able to manage the situations they are encountering, they are facing, whether to take the case to the court, to police, or to wherever they need to do that. But that is after they are doing the counseling. It's always very high, and the survivors come back and they report that thank you for the happened. And normally counselors would not want that, but for our own satisfaction that what we have done has assisted people who are needing this service. I think counselors are trained to be confident, as not to share stories, to be keeping the issues confidential. That is, if we find a counselor leaking out an information, that counselor will be terminated. We don't accept people going out and gossiping about what they have heard in the counseling room, and so that is very confidential, not to be shared. Until, if we were to share it, we share it a story without a name. Yes. But in counseling, for Papua New Guinea Counselors Association, we are providing what we call community-based helper training. That is what we call psychological first aid training. It's giving the hints to people who are always with people, who are helping people in the communities, people like magistrates, people like pastors, people like teachers, who are always with people. We provide that training for 3 days training in order to help them to understand the stress level of people who are living with trauma, and help them to identify this. If they can help, they will help, but otherwise they will make referrals to professional counselors who can deal with that. So counseling in Papua New Guinea, we are making it to become a professional organization, so that we are properly certified. I think we have a certificate that we have already developed with the assistance of Australia Pacific Technical College, APTC, who are based at the Idubada, and they have assisted us to develop a certificate for in counseling. That's the minimum standard, how the minimum standard will be set for all the counselors to follow. And they will be certified under that, attending that training for 12 weeks. And they will be given a certificate to say that they are qualified, and they will be accredited and certified by Department of Higher Education. And then they will follow. So we will have the standard that set the kind of how we can conduct our counseling programs, services, how we are counseling people. That will be set by that standard. We will all have to abide by that. All counselors will have to sign in order to make sure that they will provide a professional counseling, so that we are not doing harm to people who come and get services. We want to help them to find peaceful means of finding solutions to their problems and live happily.
Please stay with us as we have more after the break.
The Family Sexual Violence Action Committee is one body among other anti-violence organizations that work against the abuse of women and children, and for men as well. Around 50% of calls made to the One-Talk Counseling Helpline are made by male victims who seek refuge and counseling against their abusive partners. Victims of domestic-related cases are encouraged to receive counseling either from Christian leaders within their churches or from professional counseling centers, or even the sharing of personal issues verbally with a trusted friend or family member is a good way of releasing emotional stress, anxiety, and feelings of worry and depression.
Hi, I'm Charles Esiafo from Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee. I'm a Senior Project Officer. The Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee covers about 4 key areas, 4 focus areas. The first thematic area is policy development and legal reform. And the strategic goal is to ensure legal and social protection for all survivors. And the second one is, second thematic area is survivor-centered provision. The strategic goal is to ensure safe pathways in all 95 districts. And the thematic area number 3 covers advocacy and communication. The strategic goal is to ensure all communities have active network for prevention and response. And finally, the last thematic area is research and knowledge management. And the strategic goal is to ensure high-quality systematic data collection, analysis and research available on all aspects of prevention and response. As we all know, family and sexual violence or gender-based violence is a big issue in the country. It's a development issue. It affects people at all sectors of the country, affecting women, especially women and girls. It has a significant impact on women, denying them of a lot of things, violating, abusing, limiting them to access a lot of services. So it's more of a development social issue in the country.
How can we help victims of abuse? Domestic violence is everyone's problem. Most people believe that domestic violence is an issue that is better dealt with personally. However, by doing your part in supporting a victim will do them good and could even save their lives. What are some of the immediate effects of abuse? Domestic violence has effects that are short-term and lifelong lasting, such as low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, and feelings of helplessness. If help towards emotional abuse is not sought, this may lead to other problems such as depression and mental illness, together with the inability to function well as a sane person. According to the National Family Sexual Violence Action Committee, 68% of 197 survey participants experienced gender-based violence during the past year, with 47 experiencing more severe forms of gender-based violence. On average, employees experience a total of 7.8 incidents of gender-based violence in the past months, and 2.4 incidents of severe gender-based violence. Women experienced an average of 9.4 incidents in the past year.
Actually, the resources, depending on the availability of the resources. So sometimes it's the funding could affect all these different program areas, but the funding priorities, they may change over time and they might affect our program and support that is provided to the programs and the work that we do. The family and sexual violence or gender-based violence, as we understand, is quite a big issue in the country. And we understand that, it's very prevalent in the communities, families, so it's a societal issue. But as we understand, it's a learned behavior. It's a learned behavior and it can be unlearned. So a lot of people say that behavior change is very, very difficult. It's very hard to change, but it's a matter of getting involved, trying to get involved, looking at alternative options, means and ways of how you can try to get involved by providing support through different initiatives. So, behavior change can be possible. It's all about changing the community structure, and then that is when, behavior change can take place, and that is the way forward.
Thank you so much for your time, but unfortunately, we have now reached the end of our episode. If you would like to know more about our program, or if there's a story you would like to share with us, please do not hesitate to contact us via the link that is appearing on your screen now. Also, simply by visiting our Facebook page. I hope most of the information that has been shared with you has been quite insightful. Remember, help is only a phone call away, especially through the One Talk Counseling Center through the number that is appearing on your screen now. Remember, from Mondays to Fridays from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Or if ever you are threatened with acts of abuse or violence, please do not hesitate to visit a family sexual violence unit through police stations mentioned on your screen now. Until next time, I am Miriam Rakone. Please join me on the next episode of Women's World.
Women's World was proudly brought to you by Telecom PNG. Telecom PNG, always there.